What happens when a racist restaurant manager threatens to remove the wrong black woman, thinking she won't push back against his blatant discrimination until she picks up the phone and calls the owner? You won't believe the manager's reaction. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe. The restaurant buzzed with quiet energy, the kind that marked the start of a busy evening. Soft classical music played in the background, blending with the gentle clink of glasses and silverware. Alicia Carter sat near the center of the dining room, her table set with a crisp white tablecloth and polished utensils. She had arrived precisely on time, as was her habit, her confident presence fitting seamlessly into the refined atmosphere. The staff moved efficiently around her, welcoming new patrons and guiding them to their seats. Alicia noticed a couple being led to their table, a pair who had walked in moments ago, clearly without a reservation. She glanced down at her menu, but made a mental note. "Everything all right, ma'am?" the waiter asked, stopping briefly as he refilled her water. Alicia nodded, offering a polite smile. "Just waiting on my meal, thank you." She settled back into her chair, scanning the room. The other diners seemed engrossed in their own conversations, a mix of business professionals and couples enjoying a night out. She relished these moments of quiet observation, finding beauty in the rhythm of life around her. Near the entrance, the restaurant manager, Michael Turner, stood with his arms crossed, his sharp suit as pressed and pristine as his expression was stern. He tapped his earpiece, listening intently to someone on the other end of the line. Whatever he heard made his posture straighten. A server approached him with a questioning look, and Michael leaned in, lowering his voice. "They're on their way. We need to be ready." His eyes scanned the dining room, lingering on Alicia's table. A faint frown creased his face, his gaze flickering to the open reservation list in his hand. He motioned for the waiter to step closer. "Table 7, Michael said quietly, nodding in Alicia's direction. "We might need to clear it. Keep it on standby." The waiter hesitated. "But, sir, she's already seated," and Michael cut him off with a wave of his hand. "Just do it. I'll handle it." Unaware of the exchange, Alicia adjusted her napkin and glanced at her phone. The hum of conversation continued around her, but Michael's sharp eyes remained fixed on her table, calculating his next move. The calm hum of the restaurant persisted as Alicia sat, unaware of the storm brewing near the entrance. She traced her finger along the menu, debating between two dishes, while the waiter returned to Michael's side. "She's still there," the waiter said hesitantly, glancing toward Alicia's table. Michael's face hardened. "Fine. I'll deal with it." He straightened his jacket, his sharp movements betraying his annoyance. As he strode across the room, Alicia noticed him approaching. She set her menu down, her gaze steady as he stopped at her table. "Good evening," he began, his smile thin and brittle. "I'm Michael Turner, the manager here. I'm afraid we have a situation." Alicia tilted her head slightly. "What kind of situation?" Michael clasped his hands in front of him, his tone measured. "A very important guest will be arriving shortly, and we'll need to make some adjustments to our seating arrangements. Unfortunately, that means I'll need to ask you to vacate this table." Alicia raised an eyebrow. "Vacate? Why? I have a reservation, and I was seated on time." Michael's smile tightened. "I understand, but as I said, this is an exceptional circumstance. I trust you'll be understanding about the needs of the restaurant." She leaned back in her chair, her expression calm but firm. "I don't understand, actually. Why not ask someone else to move? There are at least 3 tables that were seated after me." Michael's expression faltered briefly, irritation flashing in his eyes. "Ma'am, I'm asking you because this is a business decision. We need to maintain a certain ambiance for tonight's special guests." "Ambiance?" Alicia repeated, her tone sharpening. "And my presence ruins that for you?" His mask of professionalism slipped further. "Look," he said, his voice low but clipped. "This is not personal. I'm offering you a chance to handle this gracefully. Don't make it harder than it needs to be." Alicia sat up straighter, her gaze narrowing. "Are you threatening me?" Michael exhaled sharply, glancing around to ensure no one else could hear. "I'm simply saying that if you don't cooperate, I'll have to involve security." I'd hate for things to escalate unnecessarily. Alicia froze for a moment, then smiled coolly. Escalate? Yes, he said with more confidence now. This doesn't have to be unpleasant. But if you insist on making a scene, I will act in the best interest of this establishment. She let his words hang in the air, studying him intently. Then, with deliberate calm, she folded her napkin and placed it on the table. I see. So, your solution is to intimidate paying customers to accommodate special guests. Is that it? Michael's jaw tightened, his voice dropping further. You're not the first person I've had to deal with like this. I can make this as easy or as difficult as you want. Alicia's smile widened, but it didn't reach her eyes. She stayed seated, her calm composure now laced with steel. I think I'll stay right here for now. His nostrils flared, and he straightened up, clearly frustrated. Fine, I'll give you 5 minutes to reconsider before I return with security. He turned abruptly and walked away, leaving Alicia to sit amidst the hushed murmurs of nearby diners who had overheard snippets of the exchange. Alicia took a deep breath, steadying herself. She glanced toward Michael, who was now speaking to a pair of staff members, his gestures animated and his expression tense. She didn't know what his next move would be. But one thing was certain. This wasn't over. Alicia's fingers grazed the edge of the table as she sat still, her thoughts racing. The anger simmering beneath her calm exterior was tempered by experience. This wasn't her first encounter with someone like Michael Turner. He was the type who thought his position gave him the right to decide who mattered and who didn't. Her eyes drifted to the other patrons. Some were engrossed in their conversations, oblivious, while others cast curious glances in her direction. She caught snippets of hushed murmurs, questions about what was happening, followed by awkward silence when they realized she had noticed them. She closed her eyes briefly, letting out a slow, steady breath. This wasn't just about her. She could feel it in her bones. People like Michael didn't stop at one person. How many others had he humiliated like this? How many had been quietly pushed out, forced to leave without a fuss? The click of polished shoes brought her attention back. Michael was returning, this time flanked by 2 uniformed security guards. His expression was colder now, his earlier mask of civility replaced by impatience. "Ma'am," he began sharply, his tone leaving no room for pretense, "I warned you about this." Alicia remained seated, her calm gaze fixed on him. "Warned me about what exactly?" Michael folded his arms. "Your refusal to cooperate. I've asked you politely to vacate this table. And now you're disrupting the restaurant's operation. This is unacceptable." The 2 guards stood behind him, their presence an unspoken threat. Alicia felt their eyes on her, waiting for her to resist, to give them an excuse to act. "And again," Alicia said, her voice steady, "you haven't explained why it's me you're asking to leave. There are plenty of other diners here, some who arrived after me. Why not them?" Michael's lips pressed into a thin line. But then he said it. The words she had been expecting. "Because this establishment caters to a certain clientele, and I'm afraid you don't exactly fit the image we're trying to uphold tonight." Alicia's breath caught for a moment. There it was, laid bare. No innuendos, no veiled excuses, just the raw, ugly truth. "Say that again," she said, her voice low. Michael's eyes darted around, suddenly realizing the weight of his words. He shifted uncomfortably, but doubled down. "We have a responsibility to maintain a high standard here, and frankly, I don't believe you align with that standard." She stood slowly, her movements deliberate. Her height didn't match his, but her presence loomed far larger. The guards behind Michael tensed, but she made no move to resist. Instead, she adjusted her dress and reached for her bag. "You think you can do this," she said softly, almost to herself. Then her voice grew firmer, enough to make Michael flinch. "You think you can treat people like this and get away with it?" "I've made my position clear," he replied stiffly. "Now, if you'd kindly step aside, we can resolve this without any further issues." Alicia looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, with a calmness that belied the storm inside her, she pulled her phone from her bag. "Wait," she said, holding up a finger. "Before you have security escort me out, I just need to make a phone call. Michael's brow furrowed in confusion, his confidence wavering as she turned slightly away, already dialing. Michael crossed his arms as Alicia raised her phone to her ear, his expression a mix of annoyance and disbelief. The security guards exchanged glances, unsure whether to intervene or wait for further instructions. Go ahead and make your call, Michael said dismissively, his tone dripping with condescension. I'm sure whoever you're calling will understand the situation perfectly. Alicia didn't respond. She stepped a few paces away, her voice low but firm as she spoke into the phone. Michael shifted his weight impatiently, his earlier smugness faltering slightly as he watched her. Sir, do you want us to move her out now? One of the guards asked. Not yet, Michael replied sharply, his eyes narrowing as Alicia continued speaking. Let her finish whatever this is first. Then we'll handle it. The restaurant buzzed softly in the background, but an air of unease had settled over the nearby tables. A few patrons were watching openly now, their curiosity piqued by the growing tension. Alicia's call ended, and she turned back to face Michael. She slid her phone into her bag, her expression composed but resolute. You're going to regret this, she said simply, her voice steady. Michael raised an eyebrow, a hint of a smirk returning to his face. Oh, really? And why is that? Because I just spoke to the owner of this restaurant, Alicia replied evenly. The words hit Michael like a slap, but he recovered quickly, laughing derisively. You spoke to the owner? Right. Let me guess. He's going to storm in here and save the day? Alicia didn't flinch. That's exactly what's going to happen. Michael's smirk faltered for a fraction of a second, but he shook his head. Ma'am, I don't know who you think you spoke to, but I can assure you I'm in direct contact with the owner. I think I'd know if they were coming here tonight. You're about to find out, Alicia said calmly, folding her arms. Michael turned to the guards, gesturing dismissively. This is ridiculous. Escort her out. Now. The guards hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances. Sir, if she really did call the owner, one of them began. Michael cut him off with a sharp glare. She didn't. It's a bluff. Just do your job. Before they could take another step, Alicia held up her hand. If you touch me, it'll be the last mistake you make in this restaurant. The quiet authority in her voice made even the guards pause. Michael stepped closer, his temper flaring. Listen, he hissed, keeping his voice low. I don't care who you think you know. I run this place, and I say you're done here. So either leave quietly, or I'll have you dragged out. Alicia's calm gaze didn't waver. You don't run anything, Michael, and if you're so confident, why don't you stay put for just a few more minutes? I'm sure you'll enjoy what happens next. Michael scoffed, but his confidence was starting to waver. His hands tightened into fists at his sides as he glanced around the room, realizing that more patrons were now watching. He forced a smile and turned to the guards. Go stand by the door. I'll handle this personally. The guards reluctantly moved away, leaving Michael and Alicia standing face to face. Enjoy your power trip while it lasts, Alicia said softly, because when this is over, you're going to wish you had thought twice before trying to humiliate me. Michael clenched his jaw, his composure cracking. You think a phone call is going to change anything? You're just another... He stopped himself, but the venom in his tone was unmistakable. Alicia raised an eyebrow, letting the unfinished sentence hang in the air. Go ahead, she said. Finish that thought. Michael's mouth opened, then snapped shut. His confidence was eroding, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. You're wasting my time, he said instead, turning toward the foyer. Before he could take another step, the sound of a phone ringing cut through the air. Michael froze, reaching into his pocket to retrieve his device. He glanced at the screen, his face paling slightly as he recognized the number. Alicia's lips curved into a faint smile. Go ahead. Answer it. Michael hesitated, glancing between her and the phone. His fingers hovered over the screen before he reluctantly accepted the call. Hello? He said, his voice suddenly subdued. The voice on the other end of the line was firm, authoritative, and unmistakably angry. Michael's eyes widened as the color drained from his face. He turned to Alicia, his mouth opening as if to speak, but no words came out. Hold on, he stammered, gripping the phone tightly. Let me explain. Alicia crossed her arms, watching him with quiet satisfaction as he floundered. I told you, she said softly. You're going to regret this. Michael clutched his phone like a lifeline, his face pale as the voice on the other end continued speaking. The authoritative tone of James Lawson, the owner of the restaurant, carried through the faint hum of the dining room. Michael's usual smugness had evaporated, replaced by a visible sheen of sweat on his forehead. Yes, Mr. Lawson, he stammered, his voice a strained whisper. I can explain. Alicia stood a few paces away, her arms folded as she observed him with cool detachment. Patrons nearby watched with a mix of curiosity and confusion, the room quieting as Michael's body language shifted from confidence to desperation. No, sir, it's not what it looks like, Michael continued, his tone growing increasingly frantic. I was just trying to manage the situation. He glanced at Alicia, his words faltering under her calm, unyielding gaze. I didn't mean for it to come across that way. His face twisted in a grimace as James's voice grew louder, the sharp edges of anger cutting through even from a distance. Michael's free hand gestured helplessly, as though trying to physically deflect the force of the reprimand. I understand, sir, he said quickly, his words tumbling over each other. I understand completely. I'll fix it. Right now. Michael turned to Alicia, his expression now a mixture of panic and forced contrition. Ma'am, he said, his voice trembling slightly, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Please, let's discuss this. Alicia raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. A misunderstanding? She repeated, her tone icy. You mean the part where you openly admitted I don't fit the image of this restaurant? Michael winced visibly. I didn't mean it like that, he stuttered. It was poor phrasing, completely unintentional. Alicia's gaze didn't waver. So, what exactly did you mean, Michael? His mouth opened, but no words came out. The silence stretched uncomfortably, broken only by the faint buzz of James's voice still on the line. Michael brought the phone back to his ear, desperation seeping into his tone. Mr. Lawson, I swear I can handle this, he said quickly. I'll apologize. I'll make it right. James's response made Michael flinch, and he pulled the phone slightly away from his ear as though the words were physically stinging him. Of course, sir, Michael said hurriedly. Right away. He lowered the phone, swallowing hard, and turned back to Alicia. His attempt at a smile was weak and unconvincing. Miss Carter, he began, his voice unsteady, I'd like to formally apologize. My actions earlier were inappropriate and unacceptable. I hope you'll allow me to make it up to you. Alicia tilted her head, her expression unchanging. Make it up to me, she said. Tell me, Michael. How exactly do you plan to do that? Michael faltered, searching for words. I can comp your meal. Provide a future reservation. Anything you'd like. Her smile was faint, cold. Anything I'd like? Yes, absolutely, he said quickly, clinging to the hope of salvaging the situation. She took a step closer, her voice lowering just enough for him to feel the weight of her words. What I'd like, Michael, is for you to explain why you've been treating customers like this for so long. Do you think I don't know? Michael blinked, the color draining further from his face. What? No, that's not... Alicia cut him off with a raised hand. Save it. I've heard enough. And something tells me Mr. Lawson has too. Michael's phone buzzed again in his hand. He glanced at the screen and hesitated before answering. Yes, sir? This time, whatever James said left Michael frozen. His lips moved soundlessly for a moment before he finally managed a response. Understood, sir. I'll do exactly as you say. He hung up, his hand trembling slightly, and turned back to Alicia with a strained expression. The owner would like to speak with you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, offering her the phone. Alicia took it without a word, her expression unreadable. She brought the phone to her ear, her voice steady. James, it's good to hear from you. Michael watched as Alicia spoke with the owner, his composure unraveling further with every second. He could only imagine the conversation taking place, and judging by the cool satisfaction on Alicia's face, it wasn't going in his favor. When Alicia ended the call and handed the phone back, Michael looked at her like a man waiting for the axe to fall. What did he say?" he asked, his voice trembling. Alicia's smile was razor-sharp. "You'll find out soon enough." Alicia handed Michael's phone back with an air of quiet confidence. The manager stood frozen, his face pale and lips slightly parted as though waiting for someone to rescue him. She returned to her seat, smoothing her napkin over her lap, exuding an unshakable composure. "I believe I'll stay for my meal," Alicia said calmly. "After all, I do have a reservation." Michael hesitated, his throat bobbing as he swallowed hard. "Oh, of course," he stammered. "I'll ensure everything is perfect." "I'm sure you will," she replied, her tone sharp enough to cut through the tension. Michael retreated toward the kitchen, muttering something to the staff as he passed. The security guards, now thoroughly confused, exchanged awkward glances before stepping back to their post near the entrance. Alicia leaned back slightly, taking a sip of water as she surveyed the room. The quiet energy of the restaurant seemed to have shifted, the staff darting about with a nervous urgency. Though many of the other diners had returned to their conversations, a few continued to steal glances in her direction, curious about the unfolding drama. Before long, a ripple of excitement swept through the room. The restaurant doors opened, and an A-list celebrity walked in, their presence magnetic and undeniable. Heads turned, conversations paused, and even the waitstaff faltered in their steps. Alicia watched the commotion with mild interest, her expression unreadable. The celebrity, dressed impeccably in designer attire, scanned the room as their entourage coordinated seating arrangements. But then, something unexpected happened. The celebrity's gaze landed on Alicia, and their face lit up with recognition. Ignoring their entourage, they strode purposefully toward her table, drawing even more attention from the room. "Hey!" they exclaimed warmly, their voice cutting through the hushed murmurs. "I didn't know you were in town." Alicia stood, offering a polite smile. "It's been a while," she replied. The celebrity glanced at the empty chair across from her. "Mind if I join you?" "Not at all," Alicia said, gesturing for them to sit. The restaurant staff visibly tensed, their movements becoming even more frantic. Michael, lurking near the kitchen, froze mid-step. His face, already pale, somehow managed to drain of even more color as he watched the interaction. The celebrity leaned back casually, their charisma filling the space. "So," they began, smiling, "what's new with you? It feels like it's been forever." "Just a quiet night out," Alicia replied with a small smirk, "though it's turned out to be more eventful than I expected." The celebrity chuckled, glancing around. "Eventful? This place always seems to bring a little drama. But the food makes up for it." A waiter approached nervously, placing their drinks and meals on the table. Alicia noticed how the staff members' hands shook slightly as they set down the plates. The waiter quickly retreated, shooting a worried glance in Michael's direction. The two friends fell into easy conversation, their laughter breaking through the restaurant's subdued atmosphere. Alicia shared updates about her latest ventures, while the celebrity offered anecdotes from their recent travels and projects. Their natural camaraderie made the interaction feel effortless, drawing occasional glances from the other patrons. Meanwhile, Michael hovered in the background like a ghost. His earlier bravado had been replaced by a mix of dread and disbelief. He kept glancing at Alicia and her famous companion, his expression shifting between panic and forced neutrality. At one point, the celebrity leaned in slightly, lowering their voice. "So, really, what's going on here? You seem sharper than usual." Alicia's smile didn't falter. "Let's just say the manager and I had a little misunderstanding about my reservation. But don't worry, I think it's been handled." The celebrity raised an eyebrow, their gaze flickering briefly toward Michael. "Misunderstanding? He looks like he's about to pass out." Alicia chuckled softly. "I'm sure he's just having an off night." Their conversation continued, light and unbothered, as they enjoyed their meals. Alicia noted the subtle shift in the staff's behavior. They were attentive, almost excessively so, as though trying to make up for the earlier debacle. Every glass was refilled the moment it neared empty, and each course was delivered with precision and care. By the time they finished, the restaurant had settled back into a semblance of normalcy, though the undercurrent of tension remained. The celebrities stood and adjusted their jacket, flashing a grin. "Well," they said, "this was fun. Let's not wait so long to catch up next time." "Agreed," Alicia replied, standing as well. As they made their way to the exit, the celebrity paused, glancing briefly toward Michael. Their gaze was cool, unimpressed. "Nice place," they said flatly, before stepping outside with Alicia. Michael didn't respond. He remained frozen near the back of the room, his face a portrait of quiet desperation as the weight of the situation finally began to settle in. The next morning, Alicia arrived at the restaurant with James Lawson at her side. The golden morning light spilled through the windows, illuminating the polished floors and empty dining tables. The restaurant was quiet, a stark contrast to the tension that lingered in the air. Michael Turner sat at a corner table, his hands clasped tightly in front of him. His eyes darted to Alicia as she walked in, but he quickly looked away, his posture tense. "Michael," James began, his voice calm but authoritative, "thank you for coming in early. We need to have a serious conversation about last night." Michael stood as they approached, forcing a nervous smile. "Mr. Lawson, Ms. Carter, I just want to start by saying how sorry I am. I realize I made a terrible mistake, and I want to apologize to both of you." James gestured for them all to sit, his expression more thoughtful than angry. "Mistakes happen, Michael," he said evenly, "but I need to understand what happened and why. Alicia is a valued guest, and her experience last night was unacceptable." Michael's smile wavered, but he nodded quickly. "I take full responsibility, sir. I let the pressure of the evening get to me. With the celebrity arriving, I just panicked. I didn't mean anything by it." Alicia's eyebrows rose, but she remained quiet, letting James lead the conversation for now. "Panic is one thing," James said, his tone measured, "but the words you used, fitting the ambiance, that doesn't sound like panic, Michael. That sounds personal." Michael's face reddened. "I didn't mean it like that," he said hastily. "It was poor phrasing. I swear it won't happen again." James leaned back, considering him carefully. "You've been with us a long time, Michael. This is the first time I've had to address something like this with you. Is it really just a one-time lapse in judgment?" Alicia's gaze hardened. "You believe that, James?" James turned to her, his expression conflicted. "Everyone deserves the benefit of the doubt, Alicia. If this was an isolated incident, it wasn't," she interrupted firmly. Michael's head snapped toward her. "That's not true," he blurted out, but his voice lacked conviction. Alicia ignored him, her focus on James. "This isn't about one bad night. This is about a pattern of behavior that you've ignored because you weren't here to see it." James frowned, shifting in his chair. "What are you suggesting?" "That this isn't the first time Michael's treated someone like this," Alicia said. "I'll bet if we talk to your staff, we'll hear more stories. And if we reach out to customers, we'll hear even more." Michael looked at her, panic flashing across his face. "You don't have any proof," he said quickly. Alicia's eyes narrowed. "Not yet, but I will." James rubbed his temple, clearly torn. "Michael's been with us for years, Alicia. I've never had a reason to doubt his professionalism before." "That's because people like him know how to hide it," Alicia said coldly. "They don't show their true colors to someone they need to impress. They save it for people they think won't fight back." Michael shifted uncomfortably, his hands tightening into fists. "That's not fair," he muttered. "Fair?" Alicia shot back. "You want to talk about fair, Michael? How fair is it to humiliate paying customers because they don't fit your idea of what this place should look like?" James held up a hand, his voice firm. "Enough. Let's not turn this into a shouting match." He turned back to Alicia, his expression serious. "If you believe there's more to this, I'm willing to investigate. But I need more than accusations. I need facts." "You'll have them," Alicia said confidently. James nodded slowly. "All right. Michael, I'm placing you on probation while we look into this. You'll stay away from the restaurant until we get to the bottom of it." Michael looked like he wanted to protest, but he thought better of it. "Yes, sir," he said quietly. James turned back to Alicia. If there's a pattern, we'll find it. But until then, I'd appreciate it if we handled this discreetly. Alicia's smile was tight. Of course, James. Discretion is my specialty. Later that morning, Alicia began her investigation with the restaurant staff. She knew they would have seen Michael's behavior up close and might hold the key to uncovering a pattern. Her first stop was the kitchen, where the head chef was orchestrating preparations for the lunch service. "Excuse me," Alicia said, stepping into the bustling space. The head chef, a stout man with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor, turned toward her. "Ms. Carter," he greeted, setting down a ladle. "I heard about what happened last night. That shouldn't have happened to anyone." "Thank you," Alicia replied. "I need your help. I'm trying to understand if last night was an isolated incident or part of something bigger. Has Michael ever treated other customers the same way?" The chef's face tightened. He glanced around to ensure no one else was listening. "I've seen things," he said cautiously, "but it's not something I've been asked about before." "Please," Alicia said earnestly. "If he's been targeting people, I need to know. This isn't just about me. It's about everyone he's hurt." The chef exhaled deeply, rubbing the back of his neck. "I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but Michael's been picky about who gets the best seats for years. I've overheard him tell the host to steer certain folks away, mostly people who don't fit his idea of classy." Alicia frowned. "And no one's reported this?" "Not officially," the chef admitted. "But it's not just customers. Some of the staff have left because of him. He plays favorites and makes it hard for people he doesn't like to get ahead." "Anyone specific?" The chef hesitated. "There was a young waiter a while back. Great kid, worked hard. But Michael kept passing him over for promotions, always finding some excuse. Eventually, the guy quit." Alicia nodded, thanking him for his honesty before moving on. Over the next few hours, she spoke with other employees in private. The picture became clearer with every conversation. One server described being told to seat minority diners near the kitchen or bar, away from prime spots in the dining room. A former hostess admitted Michael had pressured her to steer undesirable customers away from the windows. The same phrases came up repeatedly. Ambiance, class. Doesn't fit the vibe. By midday, Alicia had gathered enough testimonies to confirm her suspicions. But she knew it wasn't enough to bring to James just yet. Customers might hold the missing pieces, and she needed to hear their stories, too. That afternoon, Alicia met James in his office at the restaurant. He looked up from his desk as she entered, his expression grave. "Find anything?" he asked. "Plenty," Alicia replied, setting a folder of notes on his desk. "I spoke with the staff. Almost everyone had a story about Michael. He's been using his position to discriminate against both employees and customers." James opened the folder, scanning the pages. His brow furrowed as he read. "This is worse than I imagined," he muttered. "It's a pattern, James," Alicia said firmly. "And it's gone unchecked for years. He's created a toxic culture. And you didn't even see it happening." James sighed, leaning back in his chair. "You're right. I trusted Michael to run this place. And now it's clear I made a mistake. Now that you know, you can fix it," Alicia said, her tone softening. "But we need more than just this." James looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" "The staff's stories are important, but customers have been impacted too," Alicia explained. "We need to talk to them. I'm willing to bet there are people out there with stories about how Michael treated them." James rubbed his temple, visibly grappling with the weight of the revelations. "Do you think people will come forward?" "They will," Alicia said confidently. "But we have to ask. Let's start with recent diners. Your reservation system should have contact information for at least some of them." James nodded slowly. "I'll have someone pull the records. And if what you're saying is true, I'll make this right." "Michael's done, Alicia. I promise you that." Alicia leaned forward, her gaze steady. "It's not just about firing him, James. It's about showing your staff and your customers that this place can be better, that you won't let this happen again." James reached out to shake her hand. "I'll do everything I can." Alicia took his hand, a faint smile crossing her face. "Good, let's get to work." The day stretched long as Alicia poured herself into the next stage of her investigation. Speaking with customers. She sat at a small desk in James's office, surrounded by stacks of reservation logs and notes, while James's assistant helped sort contact details for patrons who had dined at the restaurant in recent months. Her first call was to a young black couple, Camille and Brian, who had dined at the restaurant 3 weeks prior. As Alicia introduced herself and explained the purpose of her inquiry, she heard Camille hesitate on the other end of the line. "Well, now that you mention it," Camille began, her tone cautious, "we did feel a bit out of place. The hostess seemed nervous when she seated us, and we ended up at a table in the back near the kitchen. It was odd, because I saw open tables with better views when we walked in." "Did you say anything at the time?" Alicia asked gently. "We tried," Camille replied, "but the manager, Michael, I think his name was, he just said those tables were reserved and walked away before we could press further. It didn't feel right, but we didn't want to make a scene." Alicia frowned, noting the familiar pattern. "Thank you for sharing. It's important for us to hear your experience." Her next call was to Mr. Harris, a black businessman who had dined alone. When Alicia reached him, he chuckled ruefully. "I remember that night," he said. "I made a reservation for a window table, but when I arrived, I was seated in a corner near the bar instead. When I asked about it, the manager said they had a last-minute booking that needed the spot." "Did you see who was seated at the table you reserved?" Alicia asked. "I did," Mr. Harris replied. "It was a white couple who arrived after me. They didn't look like they had a reservation, but Michael greeted them personally, so I figured they must have been VIPs. Alicia's pen paused over her notepad. "And how did that make you feel?" "Dismissed," Harris said simply. "Like I wasn't worth the effort. It's not the first time I've experienced something like this, but it still stings." Call after call, Alicia heard variations of the same story, all from black patrons. A pair of sisters described being given the smallest table in the house, despite arriving early for their reservation. A young professional shared how Michael had barely acknowledged her presence when she asked for assistance with her meal. Another couple, who had since stopped visiting the restaurant, revealed they had felt unwelcome on more than one occasion. What stood out most was the shared frustration in their voices, not just about the treatment itself, but about the subtlety of it. Michael's behavior had been just polite enough to avoid outright confrontation, but dismissive enough to leave them feeling unwelcome. By late afternoon, Alicia had compiled a growing stack of notes. Her stomach churned with a mix of frustration and vindication as the stories piled up. The picture was unmistakable. Michael's discriminatory behavior had affected countless black patrons, many of whom had quietly decided to take their business elsewhere. That evening, Alicia returned to James's office to share her findings. He was on the phone when she arrived, his voice low and serious. As he hung up, he gestured for her to take a seat. "How did it go?" he asked, his expression tired but curious. "Exactly how I expected," Alicia replied, placing her notebook on his desk. "I spoke with 6 black customers today, and all of them described being treated unfairly by Michael. He's been systematically prioritizing white patrons while dismissing black diners." James frowned, flipping through the notes. "I didn't realize it was this bad," he muttered. "It's worse than bad, James," Alicia said firmly. "These are just the people I was able to reach today. Imagine how many others had similar experiences, but never said anything." James leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. "What bothers me most is how subtle it's been. I've dined here dozens of times and never noticed. How does someone get away with this for so long?" "Because people like Michael know how to cover their tracks," Alicia said. "He uses just enough plausible deniability to avoid outright confrontation, but it's clear he's been doing this for years." James sighed heavily, staring at the notes on his desk. "What did the customers say when you told them why you were calling?" "They appreciated it," Alicia replied. "Most of them had written it off as bad luck or poor service, but when I explained the bigger picture, they understood. Some even said they'd come back if things changed." James nodded slowly. "That's something, at least." But this isn't just about winning back customers, Alicia continued. This is about accountability. Michael created a culture of exclusion here, and it hurt both your patrons and your employees. That needs to change. James met her gaze, his expression resolute. You're right. We need to fix this. Not just fire Michael and move on, but make sure it never happens again. Alicia nodded, satisfied. Then let's start with transparency. We need to reach out to more customers, hear their stories, and let them know we're taking this seriously. James straightened in his chair. I'll make sure my team is ready. We'll pull more records and start contacting